Today, we're going to start the conversation with Giuseppe Donvito, partner at P101 Ventures. Giuseppe, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Giuseppe, let's start by introducing our audience to you and get acquainted ourselves as well. Tell us a bit about your background as well as about the fund.
Sure. Thank you, Shamana. Giuseppe Donvito, partner at P101. I've been in the venture capital and private equity industry for more than 20 years. I have a Master of Science degree in telecommunication engineering, and then I have an MBA in finance, and plus an advanced executive course at the Northwestern University in Chicago as well. I joined one of the largest venture capital group in 2000 called 3i Group PLC between Milan and London, and then, let's say, across my career, I worked also at HSBC between London and the Middle East, working on the principal investment side. And then since 2014, I'm a senior partner at P101. P101 is one of the largest Italian venture capital fund, even though we also invest outside of Italy, as long as we find some, let's say, value-adding angle. We do mainly Series A or pre-Series B. Our targets are basically startups that should have at least 1 million euro ARR, so annual recurring revenue. As I said, located in Italy or even outside of Italy, as long as we find some, let's say, either Italian angle or angles whereby we think we can add value, like they want to set up something in Italy, or we know very well the specific sector, and so forth, so on. Our typical equity ticket goes, let's say, between 3 and 5 million euro as the initial ticket, and then we can go up to, let's say, 10 million following the rounds. We cover mainly what we call the digital and information technology sectors. So basically, it's both B2C and B2B. So if you look at our portfolio, we range from e-commerce to software as a service, fintech, cybersecurity, prop tech, and so forth, so on. What else? The fund, basically, we are in the process of launching the third fund. They should target in excess of 150, 160 million euro. We already raised 2 funds in the previous 9 years. The first fund is basically nearly at the end of the period, and the second fund, we just closed the investment period. We did more than 50 deals in our history with several exits. So overall, let's say in terms of return, the fund is doing well. Basically this is where we are in terms of funds.
Wonderful introduction. Giuseppe, I want to tap into your expertise and help our audience understand, and myself also understand, the current status of the Italian startup ecosystem. What are the dynamics? How big is the ecosystem? How many startups are in the IT and IT-enabled services sector, the sector that you focus on and we focus on? How big is it? How many startups are there? And where are they located within Italy, etc.?
Absolutely. I would say, Shamana, this is a very interesting period for the Italian ecosystem because it's a relatively, I would say, young ecosystem. When I say young, it means that compared to other European, because I don't want to mention the US because it's significantly more advanced, countries, we restarted after the famous internet bubble in 2000, a little bit later, and we are now catching up. Of course, we are not probably at the same level as other ecosystems like France or the UK, but there are many positive trends. I would say the first one is, at least so far, we have not seen significant excess in terms of valuation or, let's say, inflating system or sectors. We are still, in my opinion, in a fair environment, both in terms of valuation and in terms of business. The country has always had, let's say, solid technological background, both in terms of university and in terms of, let's say, talent pools or talent skills that you can leverage on. Is quite, let's say, focused or geographically concentrated in the Milan area, even though you can find other interesting, I would say, areas like around Rome or Bologna. Or, let's say it's not really super focused on Milan, but you can find interesting areas also outside Milan. In terms of numbers, I would not mention the number of startups. I think it's more interesting to mention that this year, 2022, we will reach roughly 2 billion euro investments into the venture capital world in Italy. And bear in mind that last year was 1 billion. So there was a sort of doubling the size. That is a very encouraging sign in terms of both, let's say, fundraising at the venture capital level and also, in terms of downstream, let's say, money put in the startup world. And this is pretty much across digital, medtech, biotech, and advanced materials. So we have other subsectors. The venture capital scene, let's say, at the moment includes more than 20 VCs. So you can find, let's say, capital. Of course, we still need probably some fill the gap into the value chain, late stage, sometimes at seed stage. So we are seeing also an increased interest from international VCs or private equity into our world. And this is probably, in my opinion, the more consistent sign that the market is interesting in terms of, as I said, valuation and potential upside. So I would define a growing ecosystem with significant upside.
So I have a number of questions based on what you said and a few comments as well. Firstly, what is the size of your deal flow in a given year? How many deals do you see?
Yeah, basically on average, I would say, when we started as a P101, we used to do a mix of post-seed and early stage. So we used to see on average 1,000 companies per year, out of which, as you can imagine, our investment rate was like 5 per year. Yeah. Now that we moved a little bit more late in terms of stage, so as I said, we don't do usually targets below 1 million ARR. I would say we see roughly 500, 600 500 deals per year. And again, we do only 1%, like 5 per year. So yeah, this is the kind of size. Then as usual in those typical stats, you have, 50% that probably we don't explore, and the remaining 50% we do some, let's say, analysis until we get probably up to 20 on which we do a due diligence, and then we do 5.
That's a very encouraging number. If you have 500 companies that are coming to you that have 1 million ARR, that's a very, very robust development.
No, Ramana, to be honest, they don't have all the 1 million ARR. I would say in general, sometimes, they come to us and they have even a little bit less. But in my opinion, it's also encouraging.
Yeah, it's encouraging, definitely. You would appreciate this. More than 20 years ago, I worked on the turnaround of an Italian company that had raised money in the US. You'll probably be aware of the company called Think3 out of University of Bologna. Yeah. Are you familiar with them? Yeah? Yeah. Joe Costello was the CEO, and yeah. So anyway, it was a very interesting experience. At the time, I don't think there were that many companies raising money in Silicon Valley from Italy, and so it gave me a window into what's happening in Italy, at least in one sector. And anyway, so that's just an aside. But coming back to my question, though, is it around the university towns? Is it around Milan, Bologna, Rome because those have big universities, or is it because they have big employers?
No, I mean, it's, as you know, in venture capital, it's always the ecosystem that has to work all together. So it's a mix of elements and things. So I would say, first of all, as it is proven also in other, ecosystem, usually it's around the financial district. So Milan is the financial district of Italy. So you can find venture capital, private equity, banks, corporation. You can find talent, I mean, employees, because, this is, in my opinion, the real issue at the moment, probably for the entire venture capital world, is to find the right people, in the startups. So usually in the big cities like Milan, you can find relatively easier. And at the same time, it may be because you have all around services, it can be like the public notaries, tax auditors, accountant advisors. So there is this kind of concentration in a specific area.
Okay. Your comment about the stage of funds, it doesn't worry me hugely that the later stage fund ecosystem is not as present yet in Italy. It will come. Besides, if a company has gotten to a certain level of maturity with local funding, then you have pan-European funds that will come to the later stages. Even American funds will come to the later stages. Today, investment is global. American VCs invest everywhere, and there are a lot of funds out of London in particular, Berlin, and so on, who will invest in companies that are Series B, Series C, Series D companies. So I think the gap you see in the later stage ecosystem can easily be bridged for the moment. It should be no problem.
Yeah. No, this is quite interesting.
Let's talk about some of your, case studies of companies that you've invested in. And as you are describing some of these, please talk about how you discovered them, how they came to you, or how you found them, and what state were they in when you found them, and what was it about them that caught your attention and you decided to write the check?
Yeah. I can mention one of the, let's say, companies that we still have in our portfolio. That is a fintech company, and the reason why I'm mentioning is because, first of all, I follow directly the company. I'm sitting in the board, and at the same time, the company is performing, let's say, very, very well. That is called Opin, O-P-Y-N. Is one of the leading Southern European embedded finance companies. So it's in this kind of sector. And we invested in this company 5 years ago. They came to us, and this is a good, let's say, positive for us, because they thought the P101 had, let's say, some experience and could help the company both in terms of growing the company and because we knew the sector that was fintech. So the typical situation, they showed us, the pitch deck. We met the management team, and we basically always, apply when we analyze a company our, let's say, proprietary framework that is not so different from other VCs, but we are obsessed by the quality of the founding and the management team. So this is probably the main point for us. And this was the case for Opin, where, we thought the management team, both in terms of background, in terms of skill set, in terms of, other soft skills, they could be the right management, let's say, for this kind of company, for this kind of deal. At the same time, of course, given our knowledge of the fintech sector, we thought that the company had significant improvement for, growth. And as the company proved, let's say, in the last 5 years, first of all, because they became as I said, Italian, of course, and one of the largest in Europe in terms of embedded finance. But at the same time, they were always able to, let's say, navigate the ups and downs, because as you know, let's say, it cannot be always positive, no, in the life of a startup. And what the management and the team that they built, sorry, because the founding team, then they built a resilient, I would say, top management team. They were always able, even in difficult moments, in difficult times, to find the solution. And let's say, first of all, they proved to be resilient as a person, and at the same time, always finding new ideas. So we are, as you can imagine, we are, let's say, we are expecting big things from this company in the future in terms of exit or whatever it would be. So this company really, we also helped the company in terms of introduction of new customers. We are always, let's say, present in terms of supporting the management. Sometimes we help in business development, hiring, M&A. So it's a very interesting case we have in our portfolio.
And this is from southern Italy?
No, this is from Milan.
Milan, okay. And what specifically in fintech? Is it a lender? Is it a B2C lender, B2B lender?
No, yeah, they started as a, let's say, matchmaking lending for SMEs. So basically, they raised money from either private, retail, and let's say institutional, and they developed an algorithm. So there is, of course, some software running behind, using big data, artificial intelligence, and so forth, so on. That helped, let's say, the matching between lender and borrowers. But at the same time, then they raised also some credit funds aside. But then what we realized at a certain point, I mean, the management realized at a certain point, is that the real value of the company was the software, was the tech. So then slowly they repositioned the company towards the lending as a service or platform as a service. So providing the tech stack to financial institutions like asset management, banks, corporates for the so-called supply chain financing. So this is what we are doing right now. So it's a lending as a service platform where we can help, as we say, financial institution companies to lend even to their supply chain using, let's say, big data or advanced credit score or credit rating algorithm. Basically, we are complementing the banking system, the lending, the traditional lending, into those segments that the banks, in my opinion, either they can do or they don't want to do for profitability reasons. So we are filling this, let's say, huge gap. And then, of course, we are now, given we have the lending, we have the software, we are now entering new sectors of the so-called embedded finance, system. And the company is generating in excess of, 40, 50 million euro revenues at the moment.
And this is market-wise, the company is catering to all of Europe, not just Italy, yeah?
At the moment, it's just Italy, but of course, we are considering now an expansion outside.
So it's generating $50 million euro a year just in Italy. That's fantastic.
Yeah, with EBITDA positive. That is the other fantastic point.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you mentioned exit. Tell me a bit about what's happening in Italy in the tech sector vis-a-vis exit. Have you started seeing exits? What kind of exits are happening? What's your analysis of exits?
Absolutely. I would say, if you don't mind, Shamana, I'll mention two things. One is, let's call it unicorn, even if I don't like the concept, because, in my opinion, sometimes it's just a definition. And exit, whereas we like exit because, first of all, is tangible.
Exit is real. Unicorn can be a myth.
Exactly. So you never, I defined, it's my personal definition. You have liquid unicorn and illiquid unicorn. So the liquid unicorn, it's something that really happened. But
you say it very politely. I say it real unicorns and fake unicorns.
Yeah, I don't want to go, let's say, there. No, I think this is the other typical evolution of an ecosystem. So in Italy, we are seeing the same steps as you could see in the past in other more advanced ecosystem. So first of all, we are finally generating unicorns. There are a couple of cases that we can mention. And as we said, they are, let's say, the 1 billion, plus valuation company. But, and this is the real positive of this ecosystem, in the last 5-6 years, and P101 has been one of the main players, we generated exit, and we, that from one side, we gave back, money to our investors, that this means that the system is working. On the other side, we are also proving that these companies, especially on the venture and the tech side, in some cases, we don't need 20 years to realize, so we can find the right balance to some extent. So I can mention, let's say, several exits, not just in our portfolio, but also in other VCs portfolios. In some, they were really successful exits, national, international, B2C, B2B. What I found very interesting, and this is something we apply ourselves at P101, is, as a VC or as a manager of a fund, you always need to be, let's say, clever to find the right time. This is key, in my opinion, Maureen, because otherwise it's easy to say, okay, I can keep this company for 10 years, say, okay, but sometimes you need to understand where it is the right moment. And at least in our case, we were, let's say, able to find the right moment. I don't want to deny that in some cases, if we had not sold the company at that time, let's say now the company would not exist because of other reasons. So you need to be, in my opinion, good. So the ecosystem also from the exit point of view, going back to your question, is evolving, and there will be more and more in the coming years.
Yeah, one of the themes that I am hearing from a lot of people is that this whole unicorn mania is an opportunity for funds that don't want to play in that to exit into. So if there are, other unicorns that are raising huge amounts of money, and, they have to backfill the valuation, basically. So if you have a company that has good fundamentals, these kinds of companies are good exit opportunities. They're flushed with capital, but they don't have the fundamentals, and they're looking for companies that can strengthen their fundamentals. These are actually very good exit opportunities.
Yeah.
So how do you see the Italian ecosystem emerging in terms of sector trends? Fintech, you have a very robust company that is doing $40-50 million already within just selling into the Italian market. Are there other parts of the fintech sector where there's a lot of activity? Where is the core competency of the Italian ecosystem?
Yeah, very good question, Maureen. In my opinion, we can play, let's say, always, talking about digital and ICT, that is my sector. I would say that I can see several trends. One is fintech. We have seen also cybersecurity, let's say not at a high level, but let's say the Italian university, or in general, the Italian tech ecosystem, in my opinion, has got very interesting skills to succeed both in fintech and cybersecurity. But I would say in general, also on the consumer side, let's call it e-commerce or marketplace, given the nature of the Italian economy, in some cases has been driven by purely consumer or luxury goods related, all the digital around these sectors, in my opinion, has got very good potential. What I've seen happening in the last 3 or 4 years is the flourishing of the B2B. So always also the enterprise software, because, in the past we were more perceived as a country more on the consumer side, because of the food, fashion, whatever, but it's not just that. And in my opinion, the, growing VC ecosystem is basically feeding and sourcing more of these enterprise software. So even going around, sometimes I do for passion universities or talking to researcher, PhD, I can see that this project, they have very huge potential. Let's call it even deep tech. So, I'm talking from hardware to software. In my opinion, let's say we will be, at the same level as other European countries with a balanced mix between B2C and B2B. Fintech has always been interesting here in Italy in any, let's say, subsector, so payments, lending, even supply chain in the banking system, let's call it compliance as a service, risk as a service. Because, the Italian banking system is quite, let's say, robust, has never been really exposed to, big turbulence. So I can see also some, let's say, idea of the old banking system to rejuvenate themselves. And sometimes they really start some fintech companies by themselves, and they're opening the cap table to VCs like us. Interesting.
It's Italy has this long tradition since Lorenzo Medici, right?
Exactly.
Of finance. So, yes, of course. Now, my last question, I know you have to run, but my last question is actually about luxury and fashion. Do you have anything in your portfolio that is an emblematic big story in that space? It's a space that I have huge interest in. I did one of the first internet fashion companies in 1999, so it's a long time ago, but it's an area that I have a lot of interest in.
Yeah, on the fashion side, we have this amazing company called Velasca. They started, the most interesting thing, this is an omni-channel company. So it's, let's say, they started as a shoes e-commerce, and shoes going from men to women with a sort of, luxury positioning. At the moment, we are diversifying to, let's say, also clothing and other accessories. The company really started from scratch, from zero. And the interesting thing is now the company doing both online and offline. So we have shops, even in New York, London. We have more than 20 shops in Italy, but they're also selling 50% online. So we are using the two channels as amplifiers of themselves. So the brand is very, let's say, very well positioned at the moment in the market. So you can buy online, or you can even go to the single shop. And I would say, in my opinion, given, again, the company is around 20 million euro revenue, so it's quite, let's say, large, selling in Italy, international, in my opinion, can become a really iconic brand in terms of luxury and fashion.
Well, this, I think, is a huge opportunity for Italy, given the expertise that exists in Italy on luxury and fashion. Internet-first brands, you start on the internet with e-commerce, and then you set up shops and really build luxury brands, or just fashion brands. Doesn't have to be pure luxury. It can be positioned in all kinds of segments of the fashion industry or consumer industry. There's a tremendous opportunity for Italy to play in that, because of the raw expertise that exists in Italy on this front. Wonderful. It's a great conversation. I love what you have to say, and I'm thrilled to see what's happening in Italy. I love Italy. We enjoy Italy very, very much. So it's great to see the movements in the ecosystem. Thank you for coming today.
Have a good day.
Take care.